So, you are a researcher here at the University of Porto. Could you tell us more about yourself and your academic and professional background?
Yes, for sure. So my name is Alexandra Lopes, and I'm currently based at the Department of Sociology here at the University of Porto. I'm a trained sociologist. I have a master's degree in sociology as well from the University of Coimbra. But then I did my doctoral studies at UK. I have a PhD in social policy from the London School of Economics. And since then, I have been engaging in research in the broad field of aging studies, with a particular focus on the crossovers with health research, namely focusing on long-term care for older people with some dependency, so requiring assistance for activities of daily living. More recently, I have been paying particular attention to issues of quality of care, with an even more specific focus on aspects related to the safeguard of fundamental rights and freedoms associated to the quality of care services. So that's where I am right now.
Why did you get interested in this topic, and what do you hope to achieve with your research?
Well, you know, I've been working on aging for quite some time, so I'm not sure I remember well when it all began, but definitely the aging of the population is probably one of the biggest achievements, if not the biggest achievement of modernity. We all basically live longer, and that's great. I mean, I don't think that there is anything better than this. But with the aging of the population, lots of things have changed in what concerns how societies are organized, how societies operate, how they function. And I guess that my interest in this field was sparkled by the realization that things have been changing quite a lot, especially in Portugal, and particularly in what concerns the traditional reliance on welfare arrangements based on family solidarity and family exchanges of care and support. I have realized that not only that traditional source of care and support was no longer as available as it was in the past, but also that the expectations, the preferences, the demands from the potential users of long-term care services have also been changing. They are more diverse, people are becoming more demanding. So you do have some sort of imbalance, if you want, between the supply side and the demand side, with lots of variables changing and moving. So I guess this is what really triggered my interest. So with my research and thinking about what we have already done, I guess that my main goal is to bring a positive contribution to designing long-term care arrangements that prove to be, on one hand, sustainable, looking at it from an economic perspective, if you want, but also that are adequate and actually tackle the needs of users, current and future users, providing good quality services and at the same time guaranteeing equity in access to those same services. So I guess this is the ultimate goal, and hopefully this will help improve the quality of life, especially of those that are more directly affected by some form of dependency and disability requiring some help.
In what way do you think your research will contribute to global health issues? For example, the practical implications of your research to future generations?
Well, looking at this from the perspective of aging, population aging, I would say that the global discourse on this is still very much dominated by the need to postpone disability as much as possible or even avoid it, which is, I have to say, a very valid health policy goal. But the truth is that at some point in life, maybe more for some than for others, we age, and with the aging process comes increased risk of experiencing some decline in our intrinsic capacities. Chronic illnesses, hampering chronic illnesses, loss of mobility, visual impairment, hearing loss, not to mention cognitive decline and eventually even dementia problems. So I feel that the biggest impact my research can have on these issues, which are global health challenges, is primarily helping build environments, both physical and social, that promote what the WHO designates as functional ability, guaranteeing that older persons, no matter how much decline they have experienced in their intrinsic capacity, remain active and participating members of the communities, and in that way continue to enjoy good quality of life, even in a phase of life where they may be affected by some hampering condition and some decline in their intrinsic capacities.
How is your research transferred to the classroom? For example, are there any innovative pedagogical methods that you use?
You know, when we go inside the classroom and we take the role of teacher, it's not as if we switch off the button and put the researcher on hold. So I would say that the borders are naturally very fluid, and probably most of the times my research takes some role in my teaching without me even realizing it's happening, or at least without that being done in a completely controlled, conscious way. But I do try to share with my students some of my experiences as a researcher, but moreover I try to channel some of the accumulated materials and experiences we collect while doing research, and use them as pedagogical tools. You know, this morning I was actually preparing something for my students of sociology of health and illness. I was preparing some personas. I use this method a lot, the personas. Basically what I do is I create these fake characters that combine characteristics, features that are actually based on real people. People I have met, people I have interviewed while doing my research. So I create these fake persons that could actually be real persons, and I poke my students and confront them with real faces, with real situations around which they can actually reflect. And I invite them to analyze the information available about the life of those persons. I invite them to think about the whys of the lives those persons live. I invite them to think about how could we improve the lives of those individuals. So this is, in a way, an exercise that is largely enriched by what I bring from my research activities.
How do you look on the role of international cooperation and university alliances such as EUGLOH?
Look, if we can learn a lot from history, and if you look back in time, I think we have plenty of examples of how national borders have been detrimental to the growth of scientific knowledge, but more than that, to the transfer of scientific knowledge to the communities. So one of the things I particularly appreciate when I think about these international networks, these international alliances, is not only the fact that by collaborating we can achieve more faster and probably in a more efficient way, in a cost-efficient way, but more than that, I think that we will be in a better position to guarantee that the outputs of our activities will actually be put at the service of the well-being of communities. So I'm very hopeful about EUGLOH and other initiatives of the same sort.
Well, thank you so much for joining us in this coffee break with EUGLOH.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.